10 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting of the Friendship Heights Village Council to order. I want to thank you for attending, whether you're here in person or whether you're streaming and meeting with us online. For those live streaming with site challenges, I'll ask each council member to introduce him or herself now so that voices can be attached to speakers. I'm Bobby Pestronk, the chairman of the Village Council.
Martha Solt, secretary.
Michael Misi.
Melanie White, mayor.
Cheryl Tyler, chair of safety.
Roy Schaefer, treasurer.
Thank you all. Copies of tonight's agenda, the sign-up sheet for the public comment period later on the agenda, and the rules governing the public comment period are in the front of the room to your left. If you wish to speak for 3 minutes during the public comment period, please be certain to have signed up and read the rules. My comments this evening address a few items briefly. First, one note about tonight's agenda. The item listed on the web-posted draft agenda under new business as discussion/vote on draft village data security policy will be considered instead at the March council meeting to benefit from additional review by village legal counsel. Next, an update on the vacant council position. This agenda item tonight under old business, it's listed under old business. It's consistent with the process adopted unanimously by this council at January's council meeting, and it's consistent with both the village charter, section 66-4, subsection B, entitled Village Council Election, semicolon oath of office, semicolon vacancies, and with the village's bylaws, article 3, section 10, entitled vacancies. Council members will vote tonight to recommend one candidate to Montgomery County Council. County Council's action is required to fill the vacancy created by Councilwoman Paula Durbin's untimely death. Assuming a majority of council members support a candidate tonight, the village manager has confirmed that, barring any unforeseen circumstances, County Council will act on the recommendation on February 27th. A swearing in of the new council member by the clerk of the circuit court in Rockville can then proceed forthwith. If these times hold, we can all welcome a new council member at the March 11th council meeting. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of the candidates who submitted their written statements of interest in the position. Each was interviewed, and I appreciate their willingness and their eagerness to serve village residents. Many good ideas surfaced during the interview conversations, and I hope that council and village staff will be able to interest the candidates not nominated tonight to serve the village in another volunteer capacity. Next, a Page Park update. Nearly everyone is eager to open Page Park. The delays and unsightly fencing have been unfortunate, but necessary and required. I regret that some people have chosen to trample the fencing to enter the park before it's officially open. I've certainly heard from residents about this. On a nearly daily basis, village staff have to repair the fence. Montgomery County police officers working in the village have been asked to remind people who are found in the park to leave it. While it's easy to be cynical or upset about the delays since last June, we are making progress. Those who follow the County Department of Permitting Services website to track the review process have seen many changes since the last council meeting. I've asked the village manager during his report tonight to provide the latest information to us. An update from the village's contractor may have been received as late as today. If so, this update may refer to resubmittals by the contractor as well as initial submittals of materials. but in the case of resubmittals, the county has 15 days to review these, since they are added to the bottom of the relevant reviewer's task list. As I've said before, these unfortunate delays were entirely preventable and not the fault of the County Department of Permitting Services. I've mentioned the mandatory referral process in earlier comments to council, village staff, and residents. And had the contractor and the village taken advantage of this process in early 2023 with its simple but yet advisory recommendations, in my estimation, many of the recent delays could have been prevented and the contractor better informed before any work began. One resident commented during an earlier council meeting that it would be useful to have an after-action report. Good idea. Such a report might examine preventive lessons to be learned for future projects undertaken by the council. Other projects like the Red House can, and frankly already have benefited from some of the lessons learned to date. While the exact due date, delivery date for park opening is as yet unknown, it hopefully will arrive as the warmest weather arrives here. Red House, I've asked the village manager during his report to provide an update on efforts to find a tenant for this village property. A strategic map for the village. Look soon on the village website for a very early draft of a strategic map. Please comment on it. This draft strategic map illustrates on one page a vision and mission for the village, its goals and values, operating strategies for success, and a list of high-level activities in the village, with what I anticipate will be a clickable drop-down menu. You'll be able to find further detail and metrics that we hope the village is able to meet in fiscal year 2025. And hopefully these will be tied into final decisions about the village budget, which at its root is a plan. With this, we'll have a visible plan for the next fiscal year, and hopefully part of a continuous, virtuous cycle of quality improvement in the village. Our quality of life survey report. Results from the quality of life survey may now be found on the village website. Thank you to all who completed it. I was told last week that the random drawing to select from among those who completed the full survey has been conducted by village staff, and that the promised gift certificates to village businesses have been awarded to the winners. Congratulations to the winners, and congratulations to the businesses where those gift certificates will be spent. I'm hopeful that Geraldine Hayes from the George Washington Trachtenberg School of Public Policy and Public Administration will be with us next month to present a deeper dive into these data, along with some thoughts about their relevance to our shared understanding of the village and to subsequent council decision-making. Climate Change and Environment Committee. I'm delighted to report that our new committee has already held its first meeting and is scheduled to meet again this week. On the amended sector plan for Friendship Heights, Montgomery County Council is now considering a proposal from County Parks and Planning Commission to amend our sector plan. Should that proposal be approved, likely in a couple of months, and I believe it will be approved, a marathon-like 2.5 to 3 year many-step process will begin, likely after the summer, to draft a new sector plan and have it approved by many bodies. I hope the village staff, council, and residents will be actively involved in that process. I spoke last week with village staff and a planning department representative to ask that we begin to consider and schedule a series of meetings to better help us all become knowledgeable about what will be involved in this amendment process. More on that later in the spring. The room here was filled to the brim weekend before last. The harpist and dancers from the Maryland Ballet Company were marvelous, and for me, emotionally moving. The pancakes and turkey bacon, okay. Thanks to Ann and Dale, Hector and Sandra and other village staff for the production and the arrangements. They were great. Finally, my office hours. As many of you know, and looking in the audience, I've met with some of you, I schedule office hours each month. Those who have contacted me to schedule a meeting during these times, official times for office hours, know that I meet at Quality Gourmet on North Park Avenue. I make an exception for the residents of Willard Towers because I live there and there's no reason for all of us to go anywhere. And I'll continue to meet at the Quality Market. So let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is comments from the public to the council. And thanks, Jason. We've got a number of people who wish to speak, 7 people. The first is Joe Butcher. Joe?
Good evening, and congratulations on a great event 2 weekends ago. I'm Joe Butcher, 4601 North Park Avenue. I'm standing before you tonight as the chair of the Community Advisory Committee. I'd like to, on behalf of the committee and the residents, ask you to vote in the affirmative on the installation of speed humps and the paint stop bars. It's an important initiative, and it comes out glaringly in the Village Quality of Life Survey. I'd also like to just kind of go off to the side a little bit. In a time where we need to improve the quality of public discourse, and we're all trying to get people motivated to volunteer their time, I'd like to acknowledge the work of my committee in establishing 2.5 years ago that we needed these speed bumps in place, pushing for the implementation of the test around the corner, and continuing to call it out as we've talked to residents and people have pulled this aside. I think there's an opportunity in our public communications like the newsletter, when things like this happen, to acknowledge the committees as appropriate when these things happen, to show that when committees work on behalf of the community and pass recommendations and information along, as appropriate, the council takes action on it. It's really important, I think, to tie that bow together. Thank you.
Thank you. Clara Lovett.
Good evening, Clara Lovett at the Carlton. Later this evening on your agenda, you will be discussing the travel policy for the council. I urge you to conform your policy to what our county government and the state have already done with regard to travel by officials, elected officials, and appointed officials to states that have introduced extreme restrictions on abortion. It's a small gesture. At a time when the country is dealing with an emerging health crisis, public health crisis for the women who are directly affected and cannot get the care that they need, and an even larger public health crisis when many doctors and nurses find that their ability to take care of their patients and to make correct and ethical medical judgments is prevented or interfered with by elected officials who don't really know the situations. So I hope the Village Council will take this into consideration and join a movement to make a statement about this national problem.
Thank you. Allison Alt.
Hi, Allison Alt. I'm also from the Carlton. I too am speaking to the travel policy. And I too urge the council to support the county and state government as well. I think that it is, again, like Clara said, it's hard to go after that. You did a good job. It's a small gesture in support of our state's policies that we already agree with. We should not be spending our taxpayer dollars in places that have these prohibitive bans that at the end of the day are detrimental to many people's health. We should kind of put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. And I urge everybody to support the county and state guidelines on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Stern?
Thank you. I'm Carol Stern, a concerned resident, as well as the president of the Carlton Condominium Association. And I also speak tonight in support of the village complying with Montgomery County's travel policy, which restricts travel to states that limit reproductive rights. In response to the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, our Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich implemented this travel ban, restricting the county government employees to states that have rolled back reproductive rights protections. In an interview, Elrich said he hopes that similar-minded states, as well as perhaps the Village Council, would follow suit to cause a negative economic impact on those states that roll back rights and protections. All people deserve access to quality health care, including abortion services, near their communities that they live in. However, fewer and fewer Americans can get abortion care in their own state. According to the latest data, the proportion of patients traveling to other states to obtain abortion care has doubled in recent years. This surge in travel has largely been driven by the post-Roe v. Wade abortion ban. I am a strong supporter of women's right to choose to have control over their health care and their bodies. And I also believe we shouldn't be using any of our Friendship Heights tax dollars in these states that have implemented outright bans or heavy restrictions so that women are forced to travel to get their health care. I hope you will all vote to support implementation of this travel ban by the council when it comes up for a vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Prem Garg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Prem Garg. I'm a resident of Carlton Condominium. I have a comment and a suggestion. My comment is that I really want to express my appreciation to the council for providing these ample opportunities to the residents for upfront feedback to the community and express their views. And it's done in front of the meeting when everybody's mind is fresh and willing to listen, rather than at the end of it when people are looking at their watch and when can they go for their dinner or whatever other appointments are. So I think the council is doing a great job in getting the residents to speak up. My suggestion is that, and follows up on you're giving opportunity to the residents, if there could be a systematic mechanism for following up on the actions needed which may emerge from the comments made by the residents. So could there be a mechanism for some sort of a periodic action taken report in relation to the comments made by the residents? And if the council is interested in moving forward, I'll be happy to work with the village staff in developing a simple mechanism for doing so. I think it would show both the responsiveness of the council in terms of not just listening to, but also addressing the concern raised, but also in general increase the level of participation and engagement from the residents into the business of the village. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Dozier?
I'm Dan, excuse me. I'm Dan Dozier from the Carlton also. I speak also in support of this council adopting a travel policy for two reasons. One, it's wise to have a policy on reporting travel expenses and travel budgets. And second, the prohibition or the restriction on the ability to travel absent particular reasons is a wise policy. And people have said, well, it's inappropriate for the council to get involved in public political debates. I rather chuckle about that because right behind us is the Hubert Humphrey Park. If there was anyone who was a spokesperson in favor of joyous politics, at least for part of his career, it was Hubert Humphrey. This council has in the past taken stands on smoking and other public issues. It is very appropriate for this council to be speaking on health care and abortion rights. And I urge the council to adopt a policy that restricts travel unless necessary to states that have restrictive policies on abortion.
Thank you. Roger Cicchetti.
Thanks. Roger Cicchetti from Willoughby North. Since the council is about to embark, and we have in many respects already embarked on what I consider to be a major long-term planning process, I wanted to comment in hopefully a constructive way about the coming task to deal with Friendship Heights strategic or long-term plans. First, just to note that this is, I submit, probably the most important area that the council could get involved in, although it's clearly not the most immediate, nor is it the one where the council has the most control. That doesn't mean it's not important. I submit it's the most important thing the council will deal with. Secondly, I think it's very important that the council, when it deals with long-term plan, take a narrow view on and contribute on solely the issue of what's in the interest of the people who live in Friendship Heights. We all have a hierarchy of interests and concerns and priorities. If your interests are for the interest of all humanity, there are millions of organizations that deal with that. If your interests are what's in the interest of everybody in the United States, there are thousands of organizations that deal with that. If it's what's in the interest of people of Maryland, there are hundreds of organizations that deal with that. If you're interested in what's in the interest of Montgomery County, there are dozens of organizations that deal with that. If you're interested in what's in the interest of the people who live in Friendship Heights, there's only one organization that contributes on that, and that's you. So when looking at long-term planning more than any other area, it seems to me you need to put your top priority, what's in the interest of people who live here. To be somewhat, to try to be constructive, also I'll put forward my ideas of what is in the interest of the people who live in Friendship Heights. Number one, I think the people in Friendship Heights, there's about 3,000 households in this community, and I think every single one of them should have a little plot of land for their own garden. A community garden that would accommodate every household in Friendship Heights would take up a lot of land. It could replace a parking lot, it could replace Saks, it could replace Geico, but number two, I think we need athletic facilities that the people of Friendship Heights could use. Pickleball, soccer, tennis, basketball, take your choice. That's a good use of it.
Roger, I'll ask you to finish up, please.
Yes. The last comment I'd make is you will not find anybody coming to the council with ideas like this that hires two public relations firms, a law firm and a community relations firm to advocate these views. You're going to have to think of them yourselves and get them from the community, but I urge you to think narrowly what's in the interest of the people who live here. Thanks.
Thank you. So let me, before you do, that ended those who signed up to speak, but I see that there are some other people who would like to take advantage of the 3 minutes, so let me go first here and then here. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was not intending to speak, but I think there were some excellent comments from our neighbors in the Carlton.
You state your name.
Al Muller from the Elizabeth.
Thank you.
I happen to agree with Mr. Dozier that the council should, when the council thinks it's appropriate, make their views known on various issues. In the past, we have talked about no smoking in public places, of not allowing bullets in handguns. I know because I introduced those. And I think those were good. Tonight's comments, though, on freedom of choice, which I fully support, I would ask the council to consider where the travel has been done. The managers have sometimes gone to national conferences, which have been helpful when they bring back suggestions. Those conferences have been held in very progressive cities who I think have strongly supported the same thing our neighbors in the Carlton, Austin, Texas, Miami, Florida. They should not be, those cities should not be punished for things that I personally disagree with their state policies. The state policy of Texas is not the same as the city policy of Austin. So I think that the travel policies have to be considered not only for the purpose, which is a good one, and I agree with the group that wants to have a freedom of choice. I strongly support that myself. But to restrict the possibility that our staff can go to a national conference potentially and not bring back information in exchange meetings with their colleagues throughout the country, I think is both short-sighted and frankly not helpful to the cause that we all or most of us agree with, especially in this village, that there should be freedom of choice. So I hope that the council will consider that, and if you want that further discussed, to bring it up as an item with an agenda, because I had no idea this was going to come up. I know the treasurer brought this up in a completely unrelated way, and the committee that he chairs was not interested in doing that. So I don't want to be contentious, but this is an item that I think has further ramifications rather than just the policy itself, which I agree with. I emphasize that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I'm Charles Schwartz from 4620, and thank you for letting me speak. I'm sorry I was unavoidably detained. I won't run over any time, but I do have just two matters to raise. Tonight, you're going to be discussing a draft request for proposals for shuttle bus. And first I heard of the discussion was put on the agenda. I asked for a copy of the draft proposal, just to be able to see it, but perhaps add some suggestions. I don't know how many of you ride the bus. I know the mayor does. But I think it would be helpful to have somebody who uses the bus a great deal to look at the proposal. It may have something or miss something that's very important. So I understand there's a policy against, it's not an absolute policy, but I'd never received the draft proposal, so I guess it was applied in this case of not giving drafts that the board will consider. I don't see what the secret is. I mean, something that's very sensitive, you don't do. You don't give out, but something that affects the whole community should be available. That's the first point. The other one is Page Park. Recently, Julian helped me find the item in the county documents part of what's happening to Page Park. And I looked at that. This is given out by the county, and it simply says basically in process. Who knows what that means? So I'd like to have the council give a detailed report of where it stands. It's been months since this came to some kind of an interim solution. I don't know if anything has happened, and I think we're entitled to know. It's unfortunately something that should never have happened the way it did, but we're in the situation now. I look out on that every day. My windows look right out on the park, and it hurts me. First of all, it's not being used. And secondly, we've spent, what, $700,000, $750,000 so far, and it sits there. And I think we're entitled to know what's happening. And I would suggest, if possible, that, not if possible, you request the county to send the person, somebody from the office dealing with this, to give a report. And I don't know if that's been done, but somehow, in some form, we should be apprised of what's happening. So I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Patricia Canesa. I live at the Willoughby. I have discussed and having conversations with many members of your board as well as members in the community. As I understand, your effort is to engage more and more people. My purpose is community engagement, and I think that we have arrived to a conformity of being very likely the same stakeholders that we come here to have a conversation with you, which obviously I represent pretty much, and how this council can really start to reach and engage more people as the community becomes more diverse, and we can hear more opinions, and we can have new languages also to be part of it. It rather surprised me that a representative commission of the government doesn't have the proper translation for people that usually is more familiar with other languages, as well as sign language, that certainly in a community like this one is very significant. Thank you.
Thank you. That then concludes the comments from the public to the council. Let me see whether there are any comments from the council members. Anybody? Councilwoman Salt?
I'd like to join Bobby in thanking everybody who threw their name in the hat for the open council position. Some very, very talented, qualified people in our village. And I'd also like to amplify what Joe Butcher said. Thank you very much for your longstanding effort on making the village more safe with speed bumps, et cetera, and your recommendations kind of set this in motion, I think. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on then to the mayor's announcements.
We have no announcements this evening.
Oh, Madam Mayor, make one up. I'll make an announcement for the mayor. We're glad to see you tonight. Right, okay. We have the approval of the minutes from the January 8th council meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, I submit a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting dated January 8th, 2024.
Is there support? Okay, Mayor White, thank you. Any discussion about the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. On to the treasurer's report.
Thank you.
Councilman Schaefer.
Thank you. I may want to use the mayor's time. So, okay, so this is sort of going to combine the committee report and the treasurer's report because they're sort of the same thing. So we had a finance committee meeting on January 18th. I thought it was very productive. I want to thank the staff, Jason, Julian, Jason, and Donna. and the other council members on the Finance Committee, Councilmember Pestronk and Measy, and we did a lot, I think. We first discussed the need for cross-training among the staff. We currently only have one staff employee who runs the payroll, and that same employee is also the only one who does the payments. And it's not fair to the employee. It's not fair to the village. If you've ever been in an office when payroll doesn't get run, it's not pretty. And the managers both made a pledge to get cross-trained on both systems, which to me means that they can independently run a payroll and run checks in the absence of that employee. There's no time limit on that, but I'd like to thank them for agreeing to that. We discussed the implementation of a contracts policy. We don't have one. This is not going to be any big formal thing. We're not looking to change the bylaws or the charter, just to have some basic rules in place. For example, this is the minimum contract that requires our attorney to look at. This is the maximum amount of time will go before we write a contract. And we have some preliminary comments from our attorney. I've solicited comments from the village managers and from all of the council members. It's not an interactive discussion. They're responding directly to me. And I will attempt to draft a policy that then the Finance Committee will debate and hopefully vote out a policy for the council to look at. We did approve a travel policy, as I think has become obvious. We voted to approve a travel policy and recommend it to the council for approval. I'm not going to say too much about it now because it's coming up later, except I do want to say, because there was a comment made about, I think, implying that this travel restriction was not part of the policy. It was. The travel restriction was part of the policy that was approved by the Finance Committee. So there's no surprise here. I'm going to present the travel policy exactly how it was approved. And then we found some time to talk about the budget. And the draft, it was a first draft, so it was very preliminary. We're going to discuss an updated draft tomorrow morning at the Finance Committee meeting. It's got some better projections. The staff made some suggestions. I made some suggestions. We both recommended changes. We've recategorized a lot of the expenses to put them into categories where I believe they more reflect what the expense actually is. We still need to set the salary levels. And I had an email discussion with Mayor White over the weekend, and she understands that has to get done. I know there have been some scheduling issues, and hopefully the Personnel Committee will meet and then recommend a proposal to the full council to review. And I don't want to talk too much about the budget, but I want to talk about the revenue piece, because that's pretty well set. And it's about 20,000 less, I'm sorry, more than we projected, than we budgeted for the current year. And that 20,000 is really the additional interest income. So not counting that, our revenue from the current year projection to next year is flat. The current year is about 40,000 less than the actual 23 revenue. So we are in a situation where our revenue, well, for your perspective, the revenue is flat, and the expenses have obviously been going up. I don't want to talk too much about the expenses because they're not set, but that's the situation we're facing. And obviously that is not sustainable. And if you want, I'm going to make my pitch now to come to the Finance Committee meeting tomorrow morning. It's 9 a.m. You could bring your breakfast. I know it's early. And if we're going to focus more on the budget. We're going to take a vote on establishing a dedicated capital reserve account. I'm not sure where we'll wind up on the amount. And we're going to possibly discuss some of the larger expense items and see if there are some adjustments we can make, because where it stands right now, we are projecting a deficit. And thank you.
Thank you. That moves us to the village manager's report.
Thank you. We are Page Park. We are, as the chairman said, we're hopefully getting towards resolution on this. The contractor, Jed Savage with Green Sweep, has had a lot of back and forth recently with county DPS and all of the reviewers. So we're down to the final 4 departmental reviews, and you can see this on the website. I believe there are about 18 different reviews that have transpired, and the others have either been approved or waived. So we're down to sediment control, electrical, structural, and architectural. The contractor has resubmitted paperwork and plans covering all 4 of these reviews based on feedback he's gotten from the DPS reviewers. There is still some information he needs to provide to the county regarding the handrails, and he's waiting on some information from the iron fabricator, the manufacturer, to submit some more detailed drawings on the handrails, which will be required for ADA compliance. But otherwise, he has submitted the follow-up requested items and paperwork to the county. And as the chairman mentioned, it's a reset of 15 days. Once you resubmit all the paperwork, the reviewers then take an additional 2 weeks or so to review what you've submitted. So we are in that time frame now, and we anticipate, we hope this week actually, to get some more progress on these remaining 4 items. And then there's an additional, I should say there's a 5th, which is just called Plan Review Final, which basically wraps up everything once they've submitted, once they've resolved the remaining 4, they proceed to Plan Review Final, which should be the last portion of it. So certainly some progress has been made. The contractor's trying as hard as he can to get everything submitted and in a timely fashion to hopefully get resolution on this.
May I add something
Yes.
to your comments? Village Manager Mansfield, Plan Review Final is really simply submitting to the county the contract that the village has with the contractor, so that the cost and details of the contract become part of the county review. So I expect that that's going to take no time at all, but the
Yeah.
county process won't accept that paperwork until everything else is done, because that's the last step. Thank you. Do you have
Can I
more,
move on to
Village
another
Manager?
item?
Yes, please move on.
Okay. Red House. We do have a potential tenant for the Red House. Potential, I should emphasize. We've received a letter of interest, which is not a business plan or a offer, but it is a letter of interest from a group that wants to establish a sandwich shop, deli / grocery there. They do have some background in this. They apparently have very good financials according to our broker, but we have not seen anything beyond the letter of interest. We were anticipating something this past Friday, actually, but we have not seen it yet, so I can't report anything more concrete than that. But we hope to see an offer from them that we can bring to the council soon. Third item is just the chairman requested that we send a letter to County Council President Andrew Friedson, our County Council member, regarding the upcoming sector plan and the prospect that that's going to happen, assuming the County Council approves the budget request for the sector plan. We will be getting into that process this coming fiscal year. So I've drafted a letter from the mayor, and unless there's any objection by the council, we'll send that letter out. It just basically indicates that we want to be very involved in the process and up to date on everything and participating in all the meetings that will occur. I'm going to turn it over to Jason for an update on a website enhancement we're looking at.
Thank you. I'll make this quick. So in your packets, you have a proposal from CityBot, and just to give you excuse me, my allergies. Just to give you some background, back on the council's October 16th meeting of last year, we had presented to the council that one of the outputs of our ICMA conference in Austin, Texas, was that a lot of municipalities are coming out with chatbot platforms to make it easier for residents to find documents, to retrieve information, and to actually have a conversation with an AI robot, which is completely programmable and also can read our website to find data within seconds. We've had several residents come up to us over the last year asking where can they find particular information, documents, and we believe this would be a great addition to our citizen engagement campaign. So like I said, you have in your packets a proposal from CityBot. We reached out to 13 vendors, mostly based on recommendations from ICMA, NLC, MML, and based on my own research. And based on those 13, we decided that CityBot is the best option. This is all they work on. All their clients are governments, where a lot of our other vendors we researched, corporate, education. This is all CityBot does, is they serve municipal governments. Just to add a couple more features, they have voice-to-text options in 70 languages, so someone can speak into the chatbot and it could converse in their native language. We think that that's a very cool feature, considering how diverse our community is. And I could explain this for hours. It's a really neat technology. It'll really help our residents retrieve important information, take some load off of our front desk so they can take on other tasks and responsibilities. And as you can see in the proposal, their annual cost is $5,750. That's complete implementation, training, and also they assist in citizen engagement activities as well. And I could talk more about that with the council some other time. And I'll just finish up quickly. The range of quotes range from $1,600 to $23,000. So this proposal is sort of on the low end. And I think I had one more thing. Implementation will take approximately 5 to 7 weeks. And I think I mentioned here, because we're entering a new budget year in July, they'll prorate the annual amount for the remainder of FY 2024. And starting July 1st, we'll have the annual contract for $57.50. If anyone has any questions.
Councilman Schaefer.
So is there a way for us to like sort of give it a test run?
Absolutely. Actually,
Okay.
I have some names of cities right here. You can look
Okay.
up. And just to be clear, we had a demo with all, well, I shouldn't say 13 because some of them
Yeah.
were fairly wacky, but I think 10 out of 13 gave us demos. We did run-throughs, and we also went to their clients' websites. So Arlington, Texas, Fairfield, California, Brownsville, Texas, Austin, Texas, Winter Haven, Florida, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Could you send that to us?
Yeah, I can send
Thank
it,
you.
sure.
Okay, so it is in use, and so and where on our website would we use it?
It'd be on every page. So basically, a user could start on our homepage, see the chatbot in the bottom right corner, and simply put in a request, when's the next council meeting? And it'll shoot right into the window. You can insert documents into the chatbot window, videos. I mean, we could design the chatbot however we like. We can give it a name. We could have a community contest, what to call our chatbot. A lot of communities have done that, actually. So that actually enhances citizen engagement. But it'll be on every page. So whatever page they go to, they can find documents info on that page or jump to another part of the website.
Okay, and is there a feature to search videos? Like if you're pulling up, let's say, the council meeting, show me where we talked about the shuttle bus. Is there a way to do that?
Well, that I'm not sure because, as you know, our vendor, their website's off of our website. We'll link to them. But that's something I could definitely look into. I'm sure it can be done, but
I know
don't
it
think it's
exists.
processed.
So I was just wondering if this included something like that.
Whatever we want, we can definitely include it.
Okay, so if we can look into that.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Macy.
I guess this is going to happen, so I just feel like unburdening myself about having our residents call a machine to ask questions when we have lots of people here who can answer questions. It sounds like this is, as you say, Jason, a neat thing and something that could help. I just register my own concern about the depersonalization that we're going through in the current world, where we're asking questions of AI types of people and getting AI types of responses. But go ahead and do it. I'm an old guy, so.
Well, if I could just quickly address that. As you all know, the world is going to AI,
Yeah,
whether
I
we
know.
like it or not. But I just want to clarify, this will not take any jobs away or responsibilities.
No, I didn't think so.
Right, just wanted to clarify.
Yes, Councilwoman Salt.
Are there funds currently in the budget available for the remaining part of this year? And then, has this been put in Roy's process for next year? I shouldn't say Roy's process, the village's process for developing a budget?
There's some leftover funds in the computer budget for this current fiscal year, and then as Roy mentioned, we're gonna consolidate that line item with some other expenses from other line items, and then be able to fund it in the future year. But for this current fiscal year, there is some money left over for it already.
And you're saying, so this charge is in currently the preliminary stages of the proposed budget, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But there's no, in the current budget, this was not specifically considered as an expense that we would.
But it's in this consolidated line item, yes.
Okay.
That hasn't been discussed at the finance committee
Sure,
yet.
okay.
But it will
All right.
be, yes.
Thank you.
But we did put it in there, yes.
Which explains why I was asking you why did it jump so much. So, okay, thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
Jason, I'm all for it because I understand the need for having different ways for people to communicate in the village. We need to try and reach every demographic that is in the village. And we have a lot of people that are technically savvy. And I think this is only going to add to reaching out to that population that doesn't sit and read everything all the time or have time to call on the phone. And I'm glad you did say that this does not eliminate people's jobs. It makes their work a little easier so they don't have to take the time to do some of this. But that's never going to stop people from calling or stopping by anyway. Have we tried, or are you aware, that it should be my question is, are you aware of any of the surrounding villages, other government entities in different areas near us? Have they used this type of service on their website?
I did a preliminary search, and no, and not to toot our own horn, but I find us to be more sophisticated and have more programs and activities for our residents than some of our great neighbors that we have. So this is why I feel like this provides that service to a population that's demanding the best, the highest quality of service. But to answer your question, no, but I can look and see what our other towns are doing around us.
It'd be interesting to see, just to know how others are, but I think it also is great to see us being more proactive in trying to keep up with changing times. So thank you.
Sure.
I'd just add that as a resident, I find it difficult to find stuff on the website, and I'm constantly moving around to see where this was or to try and remember. So if AI can help me, that's great. Look forward to that. I second the emotion about pilot testing it too, to make sure it works before we open it up to everybody, or at least clearly label it as a beta, to begin with. But thanks very much for moving forward on that, and glad to hear it came from a conference. Yeah. Councilwoman Tyler.
One other thing is that might be helpful too, and because it's so new, is that we, if possible, is to have maybe a little workshop for people to come to so that they can see it, and we project that on the screen, that they can take the time, because when you start technology of any kind, even just using the cell phone, it can be very intimidating for a lot of people, myself included, because sometimes I get frustrated. I'm like, I don't care, just turn it off, and then I'll start back over again. But I think if we had something that would make people feel a little at ease to see how it works.
Yeah, if I could just quickly address that. We actually have in the pipeline quarterly IT workshops for residents, and you'll see that in the March newsletter. This is brand new, and so we would definitely include something like this in that workshop. But of course, we'll offer other types of help for residents. We're not going to just throw this at them and hope for the best. We understand there's a various learning curve for people, so whatever people need, we'll definitely provide it for them.
Yes, village manager.
I'm sorry, one more very quick announcement.
Yeah, please.
Following up on the council's decision a little while ago to use this scholarship funding from the Rothstein, the former scholarship, to provide defibrillator CPR training classes for residents, we have scheduled some sessions in April, and we will be announcing those in the coming newsletter. These will be free, using this fund, the funds, CPR and defibrillator training at the center. We've got 3 sessions in April that we'll be advertising, and then we'll do some more from there after that. Thank you.
Thanks for your follow-up on that. Anything else, Village Manager Mansfield? All done? Great. Okay. Moves us on to committee reports. Councilman Schaefer, anything else on the Finance Committee report?
No, just to, again, there's a Finance Committee meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. It's here, so if you can attend, and these meetings are, they're very much interactive. People can make comments, ask questions, give their opinions, so I would encourage anyone who can make it to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Tyler, Public Safety.
Yes. Just want to bring people up to date on a few things. And one is on the 24th of last month, the village managers, along with the safety committee, sponsored a safety workshop for the businesses and property managers in the village. This workshop included all businesses on Wisconsin Avenue, starting at Willard, all the way over to Somerset, all the businesses located on Willard Avenue down Friendship, and all the businesses and residential properties behind Wisconsin. So it kind of, as Bobby always refers to the village as a slice of a pizza. It's the top all the way down, and most of our businesses stop at the Elizabeth, and there aren't any business as of now until we get the Red House. But we do have City Studio, but if we get the Red House, then that will be included in our business area. It also includes Boone & Sons, which many of you may know has been back here for a long time. And we had several representatives there, including Montgomery County Police Department, representative from Councilmember Friedson's office, Natalie Avery from the Friendship Alliance, and Jad Donahoe from the Donahoe Development Company. This was a first time for us to do something like that. And when I say us, I mean the village. We are making a concerted effort. The safety committee and the village managers are really trying to turn a new leaf to let the business owners who have been here a long time know that the village does care, and we want to hear what's going on in their businesses. We want to hear what's affecting them. We want to hear what problems they may have. And we learned a lot about, at least I did, learned a lot about some of the properties that are here, both rental and ownership. We also learned that people don't always report things when the police have been involved or not involved, and we need people to report it. It doesn't take but 2 seconds to either write to the village managers to say, hey, this was great, something happened, or hey, this was bad, this happened. We can't measure or know if the police are working for you or not working where you think they may need to be. And since that time, we have heard some great, I will say some great stories that are eye-opening to businesses in our community that many people may not know some of the paths that people have walked to get to where they are now. And our business owner in the Elizabeth, the deli, has a very heartwarming story, and she wrote the police and ended up writing us a letter thanking us for having the Montgomery police around. She had a life that did not trust law enforcement of any kind from the country that she came from. She lost a relative to incarceration and escaped to this country. Her fear of police is enormous. It's a very sad story, but it's a very happy ending story. So when she sees the police come now into her store or come around, she's very happy. She doesn't have that wall. She doesn't have that stress level. That was one of the 4 goals that the committee wanted to address, and that was to make community policing not back to the way it used to be years ago, but better than what it used to be years ago, which is to make people feel comfortable to see police walking around or driving around and talk to them. And that one story hit me personally because of the world that I came from, which is in law enforcement. That's really hard, and it's very hard for these officers to walk the street and do their job but not know what's coming at them either. So it goes both ways. So that was one thing the police did express, is that if you've got something to say, please let us know. There was an attempted carjacking in one of the garages over here. Fortunately, the police were here because we're hiring them to be around here, and the call was made, and that dispatcher reached out to police instantly because they could respond that fast, and they stopped something that could have been very bad to happen. So I can only encourage you, as much as the police have requested, to please let us know what's going on, what you see, what you don't see. For the other things, and as Joe pointed out, yes, you all, the CAC has been voicing these issues for a very long time, much longer than I have been here. And so this council and this committee, being a new committee, has acted upon those speed humps. Julian can probably give you more detailed about the information, but we did have some people come out. We've had, several, when the RFP came out, we had several people bid on the proposal to put the new speed humps in. We learned that one speed hump doesn't work. You need it to go across the whole street. We're also getting new painting of the stripes on the street at the crosswalks. And if you did not read in the paper, it was brought to my attention by our chair that painting the sidewalks, painting the street strips and stripes at the crosswalks is like a new thing now. And they're encouraging cities to do that. And so we're ahead of the curve because we're already doing it. And they're painting designs. They're doing anything to get people's attention because the crosswalk is where lives can be saved. So if we have brighter glittering paint, it's because we want people to see it day and night. So the village is being progressive in that area. One thing I also learned today is that those little signs that sit outside in the sidewalk in the middle of the street that many of us just pay no attention to, except if we're walking across the street, we hope that driver is paying attention to it. They get knocked down, they get torn, and you would not believe, because I sure didn't, how often they have to be replaced. And they are not cheap. So that's a lot of money. Just it's a gift that keeps giving. We got to keep paying for it. So Julian and I kind of talked today. We're going to think about seeing what we can do to maybe put something else that might work there, or hopefully the new painting and the brighter paint that we're going to be using will be a good reflector that we don't have to have the replacement of those cardboard things going back and forth all the time. The safety committee will have another workshop. We're going to try to start having these either every third or fourth month in the year. Some will be strictly for businesses, and some will be for the residents. So we are trying to engage more and trying to have these meetings at times that both, especially the business ones, meet when the businesses are in session, and I should say at work, because they don't come around after 5 o'clock. And if we do the resident, we'll try to have it at a time that is convenient and you're not inundated with other meetings. But please continue to write us and let us know what you're thinking. And that's about it.
Thank you. Mayor White, anything from personnel?
The Personnel Committee meeting was held on January 17th. I was unable to attend because the Zoom meeting was held during the day, but Martha and Michael met in closed session via Zoom with PRM Consulting Group regarding the company's proposal for a staff compensation study. And the Personnel Committee Personnel Committee met again on January 25th in closed session. It was Martha and I to discuss the outcome of the January 17th meeting. We agreed to recommend to the council to vote on a scaled-down proposal, which we will discuss later in tonight's agenda.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us into old business. And the first item under old business is discussion and vote on nominee to fill the vacant council seat. Let me see whether there is a motion to do that.
I'd like to make a motion that we nominate Daniel Ayer as our next council member.
Okay, so there's been a motion to nominate Daniel Ayer by the mayor and supported by Councilman Schaefer. Is there discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Is there? Yes.
I
Councilman
think we
Schaefer.
should have, you know, so we all had an opportunity to meet with all the candidates, and again, I'd like to thank them. Daniel is just, you know, he's an amazing individual. He's got an extraordinary record of accomplishment, personal and professional. He fills a lot of gaps that we have in the council. He has a school-age children. He's an attorney, and I'm really excited to have him join us. Thank you.
Sure. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. That moves us on to discussion and vote on the shuttle bus draft request for proposals. And let me...
Just a procedural question.
Sure.
How long does it normally take for the nominee to get sworn in?
So the village manager has talked with the county council. With this action tonight, it will be on the county council agenda, barring any unforeseen circumstance, on February 27th. And then shortly thereafter, the person, as we had to do, will have to sign the register. And
That's right, and I've already made contact with the clerk of the circuit court where this person will need to go to get himself sworn in, so they're primed. But the county council will approve it. Should be done in the consent calendar on their meeting on the 27th, and then as soon as we get the signed resolution, then he will be able to go up there and get sworn in. So he should be seated for the March council meeting.
But they're effectively a council member as soon as they're sworn in.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions? Then we'll move on to the shuttle bus draft request for proposals. Village Manager Mansfield.
Should have just left this on. So this is a follow-up from last month's council meeting. We have a draft request for proposals, so just emphasize these are not proposals, this is just a request for proposals, and this will be sent out, if the council approves it this evening, we will post this on the eMaryland, the statewide website, and begin to solicit proposals for consideration by the council at a future meeting. So we looked at essentially keeping the bus service with the same specifications in terms of the service hours and in terms of the route, and not contemplating any changes in terms of the overall service. The major change would be the bus itself, based on the feedback we've received from the passenger counts and council discussions at the last meeting regarding the potential need for a smaller bus. So that's what this request for proposal will seek to solicit proposals for either a 15-passenger bus, or we're putting in another option for a 20-person bus just to get a range of sizes. We are including an electric vehicle option for request, Both buses would include the front-loading wheelchair ramps, which are on the current bus, and we've had those on the buses for a long time now, and that's certainly something the passengers are looking for. We don't want to change that, so that would be included in the request. And then the other important feature is that the bus would need to be shorter, just not as tall as it is now, in order to fit under the overhang at the Willard Towers and be able to service that building more efficiently and prevent having to do the backup maneuver that our current bus has to do. And it will also enable it to maneuver in some other tighter spots a little easier. So that's the limit there is 111 inches. I think the current bus is 117 or 118, so it's really just about 6 inches shorter is what we're looking for. And we have had some preliminary responses from interested vendors who can provide us with that type of a bus. Grocery racks, storage space, we want to make sure we include that in the bus as well. We want, and certainly the drivers to be assisting the passengers and keep up the good level of service that we've had with the drivers from the current contractor. In addition, a dispatch office that the contractor would provide to be able to notify people whenever the bus is down for any reason or there's any sudden schedule change. We're also looking for a better version of the app, the mobile app that RMA, our current contractor, has produced, but it doesn't function very well, to be part of the specification as well for the request.
Are there questions from council members for the village manager? I'll start at this side. Councilwoman Tyler.
Thanks.
Julian, in the app, I've used DC's Metro app before, and I don't want to get into the weeds of it, but in this app, will it be an app that shows time slots or routes, or what is the function of the app that you're looking for?
The function is to show the current location of the bus at all times and time to the next stop. So the current app, the way that it's supposed to work, it shows you a map that shows the location of the bus, and then it shows the schedule, and then it says 1 minute till the next stop at North Park and Willard, or 1 minute to the next stop after that. That's the way it's supposed to function, but unfortunately it doesn't function as well as we'd like. It also has to sort of toggle between two schedules. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday is a different schedule than Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. And the app has to be able to switch back and forth between the two. Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday we're going to the West Bar, the new Giant over there, and it's a different route with different times. And the app has to have functionality to be able to switch back and forth between the two schedules.
And will it be compatible on platforms on laptops as well as on Androids and Apples?
Should be, yeah. I mean, that's the functionality we'll be looking for.
I asked that because that sometimes gets, that was a problem with DC's at first. When it came out, it worked on the computer but didn't work on an Android the same as it did on an iPhone.
And let me just also add that Jason's reminding me, we are working, we can't announce it as a done deal yet, but it's pretty close. We're working on a shuttle bus map for the website that shows the stops. It's not the equivalent of the app. It doesn't show the exact location of the bus in real time, but it's a map of the entire service that has all the spots located where the stops are.
Cool.
And we've had some feedback from folks who were looking for that, and that will be shortly, we hope, unveiled on our website, and we'll certainly make an announcement when that's up and running.
Okay, those are the app. That's great to hear about that part of it, but the app part, I just want to make sure some of those things are addressed too. Thanks.
Councilman Schaefer, did you have a question?
So the 111 inches solves the Willard Towers problem with the
Yes.
clearance, because
It's
okay.
6 inches. Yeah, that's what we need.
Okay.
All I can
From
say
lower
about
than the
that,
current bus.
Councilman Schaefer, is beep, 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 beep.
Because I've seen it, it's not pretty, and I'm always afraid someone's going to run in front of it, and while the driver's stopping, it's going back
Well,
up.
he's able to do it
Yeah.
now, but it's a kind
I've
of a
seen it.
complicated maneuver.
Yeah.
He has to kneel the bus down an inch forward.
But then he only has so much time to clear.
Correct.
Yeah, so, okay. And I'm just curious, because I know this is a hard request to meet. Is there a reason why the bus has to front load for a wheelchair?
What we've heard on that is time, the schedule time is pretty negatively affected if the ramp is in the back. It just takes a lot longer. The bus driver has to get out of his seat. He has to go all the way to the back. The front-loading wheelchair ramp, he deploys it from his seat. It's just a faster maneuver.
Okay.
And he does have to deploy it with, pretty regularly. So I think
okay.
if we had it in the back, it would be harder for the people to use. It would just take a lot longer, the whole procedure, and I think the schedule would be strained.
Okay.
Because there's not a lot of time built in between stops.
Right.
It's a pretty tight schedule.
Is that something that might cause a company that would have bid to not bid to meet that requirement?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Potentially, but I don't know. I don't know how many are manufactured that way, or if that's the more common way to do it. But the way that we've had it on the existing bus and the previous buses has always been in the front, and the passengers, I think, kind of expect that, and they really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor White?
Roy, I can address your last question. When the ramp is not in the front of the bus, there usually has to be some type of steps, and the steps cause problems for people who may not use any type of mobility device, arthritic knees, et cetera, et cetera. So, and with having the ramp in the front of the bus, it just makes it seem more seamless for everybody, regardless of how mobile you are, so.
Let me just, I have a question, 2 questions. Julian, I just wondered under the second bullet where it says 15-person bus and then in parentheses 1, but up above it says that we want, for obvious reasons, we want to have 2 buses, one as a backup for the regular one. But why does it say 1 in parentheses there? I don't want the people who are proposing to be confused and give us incomplete proposals. And the same is true under the 20-person bus.
I see what you're saying. And no, I think that is an error. Thank you.
Sure.
That should say 2.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to do 2 buses because, and this is what we've done in the past, we want 2 new buses because there's only one on the route at a time. But when something happens, we want another one ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So we'll make that correction. Thank you.
And then down the last bullet before additional requirements, can we ask for a separate quote to understand what the current bus wrap, what the bus wrap will cost, just so we know, as we're considering the proposals?
So the RFP should say separate price for this?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that, yes.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Okay.
Julia, in the racks for groceries and items, I ride the bus from time to time, and are there racks and storage for overhead?
Not overhead. There's a rack on the current bus right as you
at the
right
front,
as you
that's
enter the
it.
ramp to the right,
Uh-huh.
just behind the driver.
Okay.
There's an open.
And that's it.
There's an open
Okay.
sort of storage rack. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the proposed RFP with the changes that have been made?
I'd like to make a motion, but it's not exactly that. But
Okay, yep, go ahead.
I'd like to move to issue an RFP for shuttle bus services with public input sought for 5 business days after council approval and authorization granted to the village manager to make minor modifications to the RFP based on public comment.
Is there support for that motion? Mayor White? Okay. Any discussion about the proposal? That would let those who have comments to make about it provide those to the village manager and minor modifications to be made.
I got a question.
Yeah. Let me go Councilman Measy first and then
I
Councilman
think I
Trailer.
understand. So we're going to approve this and allow residents to make comments on this, and if they are minor adjustments, Julian can move ahead and send out the RFP. If in his judgment they are major changes, it'd have to come back to the council. Is that what I'm voting for?
That's what you're voting for.
Okay.
Yep, Michael took it right out, because those are trigger words, minor and major, so.
We will leave it to the judgment of the village manager to make that determination. Village Manager Mansfield?
So we will post this on the website
Yes,
tomorrow and give 5 days.
yes.
Okay.
5 working days.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks. There's been a motion. It's received support. Is there any further discussion? Does anybody want the village manager to repeat the motion? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. That moves us on to a discussion vote on the recommendation from the Personnel Committee to approve a proposal for classification and compensation study. Councilwoman Salter, Mayor White?
I'm prepared.
Okay.
I move to approve, see, turn it on. I move to approve the PRM proposal dated January 17th, 2024, to conduct a classification and compensation study for a total of $25,000, along with the option of a one-day training for $6,000 in the proposal dated November 1st, 2023.
Is there support for that motion? Mayor White, thank you. Okay. Questions about the motion? Councilman Measy.
What, explain, Martha, because obviously I missed the last meeting that you had with Melanie about this. How does the option of the $6,000 training session work? Do we have to approve that in a separate vote at some point, or, you know, how does that option get exercised?
Just by way of background, we got an initial proposal with several components to it, including training. I requested, another review to see if they could lower the price, which they did. But the second proposal didn't include the optional training. And my motion here is to allow us, it's our choice, if we want to engage that training, then we wouldn't have to come back to the council. I presume it would be at the, with the authority of the Personnel Committee, whether they wanted to do that. Does that answer your question?
It clarifies the question. It seems to me that we need to know whether we're appropriating $25,000 or $31,000 here. And so the question is, are we...
Okay, my understanding is when you budget for an option, you include the option, which with no obligation to engage that option and pay for it. So
I don't
budget for the larger amount.
You and I have been involved with this, and
Yeah.
and we've worked together on this. I don't want to obstruct the process, but I guess I would like some sort of process by which we decide that we're going to need another $6,000 for a training session that's beyond simply getting two people, 2 out of the 3 Personnel Committee members to agree to that. So could it be that we could have a discussion at a council meeting of what we've accomplished with the first $25,000, and then have a discussion about whether we want to spend another $6,000 on the option?
I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah.
Would you like me to change the motion to accommodate
I'd
that?
be more comfortable with that.
Okay, let me see how I do this.
Let me just reflect, having been through a process like this many times before in this exact kind of study, there's a lot of water that has to go under the bridge before we get to the point of training.
Yeah.
So we'll know, several months from now, at a minimum, whether a training's going to be useful. The village managers probably will be involved in this. They'll have some idea of what they've learned, what they haven't, what training may be needed. So I think this is a good idea, and if it...
Then can I suggest the amendment to the motion is to sort of delete the reference to the training, and then we come back?
Then we come back.
Shall I repeat the motion?
I have
Is
a
that-
question.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Tyler.
I understand and following everything in there. Yes, I counted it as 31,000, and if you didn't spend the 6, you didn't spend the 6. And so it wasn't set aside, it goes back into the pot. My only concern is when you start separating and you come back later, that you have to state in the RFP or that you have that right to come back at that price, and that they guarantee that price of $6,000 for a said time frame. Otherwise, you go back and they may say it's more.
I think we can
I
write
just-
that in the
Yeah.
contract, so I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying, yeah.
Great. Any other discussion about this item? Village Manager Mansfield, anything that you're wondering about? Okay, great. So there's a motion, there's been support for that motion. All those in favor?
Oh,
Yep,
Martha,
go ahead.
why don't you repeat it again?
I move to approve the PRM proposal dated January 17th, 2024, to conduct a classification compensation study for a total of $25,000, period.
Great.
Right.
Okay, great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. We move to the discussion vote on proposals to install additional speed humps and to paint stop bars. Councilwoman Tyler?
Yes, we are, and I'll defer the specifics to Julian to talk about those.
So yeah, this is a follow-up from the Public Safety Committee recommendation. We did advertise for bids for installing speed humps and painting the stop bars. The stop bars are the little bars that are in front of the crosswalks. And we had, I believe, 16 of those to paint and to install 3 additional speed humps. We collected 9 bids. There was a wide range in prices, as we've seen on other items. We did meet with Councilwoman Tyler and talked about how to narrow the bids down, and we centered on a cluster of basically 4 proposals that were kind of in the middle but on the lower end. And they were all clustered around each other in price, and checked out references and reviews on those 4, and the one that actually looked the best happens to be the lowest bid of those 4, which is Sanford Federal, $17,446. We did ask for options for either painting the stop bars or using thermoplast, which is the longer lasting. It's a hot liquid application that goes down and dries and turns into sort of a hard shell, and that's what we've had out here in the past. The price difference was not that great between the two, so we are recommending the thermoplast option, which should give us about a 7 to 10 year life, as opposed to painting, which you'd have to redo probably every few years. So with the thermoplast option and the 3 stop speed humps, the proposal is $17,446. I would also add that the contractors gave us, we had a lot of site visits with different contractors looking at this, and they all gave us some good feedback on the location of the speed humps, the desired location of the 3 speed humps. 2 will be on North Park Avenue below Shoemaker Farm Lane going down the hill. 1 will be approximately where the Red House is, crossing over to between the Elizabeth and 4615. The second one will be towards the bottom of the hill, going around the curve, going down towards Willard. And then the third one will be on South Park, right behind us here, between between Friendship and Hills Plaza, right around where the middle of Highland House West is, to slow down some people there. So that was some good feedback we received from multiple contractors on where to put the locations, because we had not specified precise locations in the invitation for bids.
The only other thing I would add, as Julian said, they're going the speed humps so people will know, and we'll send out, I'm sure as that time comes, if everybody agrees to approve this, when this process starts, the humps are going across the entire street. So it's not
That's
just
right.
that one like we have out here. And everybody who, as Julian said, who he worked with and interviewed and talked to, and even down to the police giving their comments about it, having the speed hump go straight across the street is the proper way for them to be installed. Thank you.
Yes, Councilwoman Salt.
Assuming this goes through as planned, when would all this work be done? When would we see
Well,
it?
I was assuming springtime, although I did hear from some contractors that the speed bumps themselves can go in with colder weather. The painting thermoplast really needs warmer weather. So a few of them advised that they could do it separately, first the speed bumps and the thermoplast. My feeling is we should probably do them all at the same time, just for efficiency and less disruption to the traffic patterns and all of that. They will have to close some streets to do this work. But technically the speed humps, like for instance today, I think they could have done the speed humps 50+ degrees. The thermoplast definitely needs warmer.
So can you give like an estimated date? Spring is kind of a broad. Would it be done like in May, middle of May or something like
Yeah,
that?
I think
or
so.
Middle of June, August? What
before-
am I saying? April, it's one of those A months, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's say before the end of the fiscal year, which would be before June 30th. I think
So
that's,
that's summer.
I think that's eminently doable. But we'd
Okay.
have to check with their schedule and see when they
Right.
can fit it
Okay,
in.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would say spring, late spring.
Yes, Councilman Schaefer?
Yeah, a couple of questions. What kind of signs are we putting around the speed bumps to warn people they're coming up? Or are we?
We weren't planning on it. We don't have any signage for the current one on Hills Plaza.
Yeah, because that's,
There's
sometimes you don't
there is
know
a
it's.
Yeah, there is a potential question that we might want to do that, or we might need to do that. So
Yeah, 'cause
that's something we'll explore further. I think the county has a standard, or the state has a standard where they, in certain neighborhoods, where they say speed bump ahead or some type of
Yeah,
sign like
because that's
that.
sort of, you don't know, especially at night.
But
You
the-
don't know it's coming and you hit it and, well.
Yeah, but again, these are, I should emphasize, these
I
are
don't
the,
mean me,
these are the same type, this is the same type that we have here that's very
Right.
driver friendly.
But there's a
You're
stop
not-
by the stop sign though, right? Is that
It's
one
by
you're
the
talking-
stop sign,
Right,
this
so
one.
you're stopping anyway for that
Yeah,
speed bump.
right.
So.
Sensibly.
Yeah, so if we could look into that, that would help. And these are all going on private roads, what we're talking about?
These are all going on public roads. These are all going on village roads.
Village, I mean, they're our roads, they're not.
Our roads,
Yeah,
but
okay, and,
definitely public.
how are the speed bumps going to affect snowplows? Is
We
that-
will notify the contractor of these locations and instruct them to, come up short of it.
Yeah, 'cause that's a
They
problem,
they
if-
can get damaged by snowplows.
No, I know,
definitely.
and if they can't see
Now,
it,
what we
then they're
did, what
fine.
we heard from the contractor is that, the speed hump contractors say that if they get damaged, they're relatively easy to put back in place.
Okay.
Because they're rubber and they're not gonna break up into a lot of pieces.
But we'll let our contractor know.
But we'll
and
definitely let our
acknowledge
contractor
that
know,
they-
the
okay.
same way we've done it with this one here, which survived the last
Okay.
snowfall. They didn't damage that one.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Macy?
Just thought, it occurs to me that our new buses, when we get them, are gonna be going over a lot of speed bumps. Is this something is this something that gets incorporated in the RFP, so that, I'm just wondering about senior citizens sitting in the bus getting bounced around every time you go over these sorts of things.
I don't think it's gonna affect much with the bus. They're pretty mild to go over, and the intention is that you slow down, and if you slow down enough, it's a very smooth, I've gone over this one many times in my car. It's a very smooth up and over.
You're not quite in this senior citizens category.
Thank you, but I think our bus will be able to handle it pretty well. Even a new bus that's smaller,
Okay.
it will get over it fine. Yeah.
Other questions? So the village manager has made a recommendation. Is there a motion to, and your motion is support the recommendation of the village manager? Great. Yes, support. Councilwoman Tyler, thank you. Any further discussion? Councilwoman Sol?
I think we need a complete motion rather than, this was a very long recommendation, so I think, so is the motion to adopt the proposal from What's the name of it?
Sanford Federal, and the motion should specify thermoplast option plus speed humps for a total of.
Just bear me, I just want to get
That's
this
okay,
right.
thank you, Secretary. In this case, Secretary, so, right.
Okay, so I move to adopt that motion, and somebody supported it. Great.
Okay, so the motion is by Councilwoman Salt, and the support is from Councilman Measy.
Okay.
Anything that we need to have in front of the whole council? Councilwoman Tyler, anything?
Just so that it's clear, the question that Roy had, Councilman Roy had about signs, that will have to come under another RFP, and that's more work to look into the companies that can do that type of sign. So we can ask, as Julian has said, we'll look into that. That will, and we have to know what the price is. We didn't have that in the beginning.
That,
so
yeah,
we can
that
ask.
should not require an RFP and a bid process. That the cost for that
We'll
should
just find out
be-
what the price is.
Yes.
So there's a motion as it's been restated by Councilwoman Salt and supported by Councilman Measy. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. That takes us to the last item under old business, discussion vote on proposed village travel policy. Councilman Schaefer.
Okay, thank you. So as we've discussed a few times, we don't have a travel policy. We've had one that was approved at the January 18th Finance Committee meeting, and it's a very bare bones policy. It's only 2 pages, but for the first time it does establish some rules that require approval for travel, expense limits, the requirement to file an expense report, and providing a statement to the council about how the village benefited from the travel. Some of these rules also apply to council members as well, in terms of getting approval for any travel other than the Maryland Municipal League contract and filing expense reports. Those apply to council members as well. So what people have been talking about, the policy includes a statement that says, and I'm going to read it exactly how it's in the policy: the village will not approve travel or reimburse travel expenses for any overnight travel to a location where Montgomery County has prohibited travel by employees of Montgomery County. And this restriction also applies to travel by council members. The reason I put it in there originally, it's because we're part of the county, because we have extensive relationships with the county, including financial. I thought we should follow this restriction. Approving this policy does not mean the village is endorsing any political viewpoint. There's no political statement in the policy. Obviously, it's a little naive to say there's no political component, but the policy doesn't go into why we're adopting it. It just says we're following the Montgomery County policy. Somebody asked the question, does this obligate us to follow any other restrictions? The answer is no. And after the policy was passed, some people suggested that there should be a waiver allowing the mayor to make an exception. I'm not including that because I'm submitting the policy exactly how it was approved. But if somebody wanted to make that a motion to amend, I would support it. And I also want to mention that the council members have all had a draft of the proposed policy for several days. Okay. Oh, so should I make a motion to?
If you'd
Okay,
like.
so I make a motion to approve the travel policy as approved at the Finance Committee meeting of January 18th.
Is there support for that motion? There's support for it. Discussion. Councilman Measy, yep.
I'd like to propose an amendment. After the text in boldface about the county limitation, I propose an amendment that the mayor may waive this. I've got it in my phone because I usually don't do this. Yeah. The mayor may waive this restriction in writing for a specific trip if he or she determines that such travel is in the best interest of the village. Well, before I discuss it, I guess I need a second, right? I think we need this flexibility in the policy. If there will be or can be circumstances under which somebody does need to travel, Julian is getting an award as being the town manager of the year, and it takes place in Georgia. It seems important that Julian go to that meeting, and I think we have to have the capacity to be flexible here, and the mayor take responsibility for that, to make those exceptions if necessary. Otherwise, I certainly support the spirit of the proposal, and I understand the arguments both for and against, and I've tried to work these out in other situations, but in this particular one, I do come out in favor of the policy. I thank Roy and Martha for working on the policy and and being open to various suggestions.
Any discussion about that motion, that amendment to the motion? Is there support for that amendment?
Roy,
okay.
I'm trying to understand right now at this point, are we voting on the first motion that Roy put out? Are we voting on the amendment to that motion?
We're voting on the amendment to the motion. There are opportunities. There will be a subsequent opportunity to vote on the travel policy, either as amended this way or any other way that anybody wants to propose. But the first vote will be on the amendment to the, that's the first amendment that's been proposed. Yeah.
So, I'm just asking what we're voting on, okay, so my understanding is the policy including the waiver amendment, is that what we're voting on? Or just the waiver amendment?
We're voting on the waiver amendment alone right
Okay.
now. And
Okay.
then,
Not
we're
yet.
not voting on the motion. And then there will be an opportunity for any other amendments that anybody wants to propose or any other adjustments, and they will be voted on separately. And then, once that process is finished, we will vote on the amended policy, the result of
Can I say,
whatever
it
happens.
doesn't make sense to me if you don't have an underlying policy that you're amending. If you're doing an amendment with nothing blank.
Yeah.
The reason for doing that is because the original motion was to adopt the policy as it's written. And so what we're going through now is a process to amend the policy that was proposed to change whatever language anybody wants to propose,
So
and this is the first amendment that's been
Okay,
proposed.
so it's the amendment
The motion,
embedded into the policy.
the motion was to approve the policy. The amendment is to modify the policy with this
Got it.
restriction.
Okay. That I understand. Mhm.
Okay, let me just talk this out loud. If you have a motion on the floor for a policy, you have to move on that motion or rescind that motion, and that person, which would be Councilman Measy, is to amend and make a new motion. You're asking for us to vote on a motion and amend that motion.
No, I'm not.
Well, then explain, please.
Yeah, let me explain it again. So there was an original motion to adopt and support, to adopt the policy as it's written.
Yes.
Councilman Measy has offered an amendment to this as it's written. So the first order of business for the council is to address that amendment. We're not addressing the whole policy, we're simply addressing that amendment to the policy. After there's action taken on that amendment, anybody else that wants to make a modification or propose a modification can do that. And then there will be, if there's support for it, then we will have discussion about it, and we can either vote it up or vote it down. So what's being voted on right now is simply the amendment that was proposed by Councilman Measy. That's it, not the whole policy. just the amendment to the original policy.
Right, and to be clear, that amendment is to add a waiver authority for the mayor.
And I guess
It adds to the policy, it gives the mayor the ability to issue a waiver.
and we should, I mean, parliamentary procedure is complicated sometimes, but it seems to me that what you're doing here is you can, for those of you concerned, you can vote for the amendment, and if it's even if that's adopted, you can still vote against the policy. You might say to yourself, gee, I don't like this policy at all, but if we're going to have this policy, I'd rather have it with the waiver or not have the waiver. So you're not committing yourself to voting for the policy if you vote for the amendment. You're just voting to see whether the amendment is good. If you're going to have that policy, it's better to have it with the amendment than without the amendment.
So all kinds of amendments can be subsequently proposed before there is a final vote
Exactly.
on it. So Councilman Tyler, is that?
That's clear.
Okay. So any further discussion on the amendment as proposed by Councilman Measy? All those in,
I guess I do have a comment.
okay.
I think it's typical and usual when there's a policy with a restriction to have some form of a waiver. It's not crazy, and they're not meant to undermine the original policy that it's related to. So.
Yes.
And
Councilman Measy.
as a point of information, the county policy, which we are modeling this after, has a waiver provision in it as well.
Any further discussion on this amendment? The amendment to provide the mayor with authority to waive.
I have a question.
Councilwoman
So
Tyler.
when the mayor, I hate to see you be inundated with it, but I can see that coming. Because this can go on for any little thing. Somebody might say, well, why are we even buying products or supplies from this state? So it can get out of hand. But that's a load that the mayor will have to take on. That will be how many waivers are coming through. And I don't know if we're looking at restrictions or we're just leaving it that the mayor will be able to make the waiver, period. That's it.
That's my sense of what the amendment spoke to.
Right, and as I mentioned, this does not obligate us to adopt any other county restrictions. And this, we're only talking about a travel policy here, so it would not apply to other purchases of goods or services.
Oh, I think we need a travel policy.
Okay.
But
I'm saying that this waiver and policy is only in the context of our travel policy.
Let me speak to the amendment. I too am in favor of a travel policy. I'm going to vote against this amendment because I want to move forward with having a discussion and perhaps see whether there are other items that are, no, in fact, that doesn't make any difference. I'm going to vote for this, and then I'll see whether there are any other amendments that anybody wants to offer. So is there any further discussion on this? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I thought your policy was you didn't vote.
What I mentioned when I declared at an earlier meeting that I wouldn't, except where I think my vote will make a difference, or where I think that there may be problems. And so I plan to vote on issues related to this policy as they come up. So is there any further discussion about this amendment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Are there any other amendments that anyone would like to propose to the travel policy?
So are you voting on this amendment or not?
I did vote on this amendment.
Okay, I didn't
Yes,
see a hand.
As I mentioned, I
Okay.
said that I wasn't
Right,
gonna
but I
vote.
didn't see a hand go up,
Yeah,
so, okay.
I voted. Is there any other amendment that anybody wants to make to this travel policy? Seeing none, in that case, yes.
By making each individual who travels, by making them responsible for collecting their own receipts, we are losing the ability to not pay taxes if we go out to dinner, because I don't have a tax exempt certificate, correct? I don't think individuals can claim.
No, because there's a reimbursement. Expenses are reimbursed at the rate that's according to the General Services Administration policy. So you would get reimbursed for expenses.
But
And
the
there's no
villi-
tax consequence to you.
The village would have to pay taxes on my dinner, correct?
No, you would buy your own dinner and then get reimbursed at the GSA rate through your expense report.
I don't think I understand.
Okay,
it.
so let's say the GSA rate says we'll reimburse you, it's called M&IE, Meals and Incidental Expenses. So let's say it's $80. You get $80. It doesn't matter if you spend it or not spend it. So if you decide to get dinner, that's out of your own pocket, but you're getting that $80 a day reimbursement.
But right now, if we go out to dinner, Julian hands them the tax exempt certificate, and our meal is tax-free. So by having individuals pay for their dinner, we are now, the village
Well,
is now paying tax on that meal.
You're talking about the tax on an individual dinner?
Right,
So that's
but it adds up when you have 8, 9 council people going out to dinner year after year after year. I don't think that's,
well,
it's just the mechanics of it.
You give a tax exempt certificate when we have dinner, when there's a dinner, and
When we're in Maryland, yeah, we have a Maryland sales tax exemption, but.
okay. So you're talking about on a $200 dinner or $300, you're saving that
6%.
You know, I'm not sure that's really worth a discussion.
Any further discussion on the amended overnight travel policy? So we're back to the discussion about the overnight travel policy. Councilwoman Tyler.
I have a question. So what happens when you don't have an overnight and you go for the day?
Well, I don't think people are going to out of state for one day, for the same day.
What if you don't have an overnight and you go for the day?
Well, then technically the policy wouldn't apply. It's an overnight policy.
Then that's what people need to understand.
Okay.
If you don't go overnight, how does that affect it?
It wouldn't fall under this policy.
So that's all I'm doing is bringing up various situations that can happen. They may go to a conference and go that morning and come back that evening. That's not an overnight. So you need to consider all of the types of travel that could and possibly occur.
Any further discussion or comments? Yeah, Councilwoman Salt.
Cheryl, are you suggesting that the policy be amended to, for example, apply, well, it says in the title, overnight, so.
I'm not suggesting any amendment. All I'm doing is making it clear that
Okay,
there is
okay.
travel that also occurs
Okay.
for
So
a
this
day and
isn't
does
the
not
only type
occur
of travel.
overnight.
Okay.
Yes.
Any further comments? Any further discussion about the motion? I'm going to vote against this motion to adopt the policy. I don't think that we should cede our authority on adopting policies to Montgomery County. And I think that it is appropriate for us to have a separate discussion about this particular aspect of the policy. I am a proponent of the intent, but I don't think that this is the way to have the intent happen. And I think that a better procedure would be for us to, if we had such an amendment, to adopt it without this paragraph, because we need a travel policy, and then as part of an agenda for a separate meeting, to have a conversation about the intent and the specific policy direction that this paragraph implies. So, and I don't know whether anyone else has any further discussion, but that's my contribution to the discussion. Councilwoman Solt.
I have run this by a number of attorneys, and they've assured me that this doesn't create a commitment in any way for a requirement to follow any other Montgomery County or state or any other policy. This is standalone, voluntary. I want to just state outright, I really support a policy that institutes prior approval and cost controls for overnight travel. I strongly support a voluntary compliance with the Montgomery County travel restriction. And I think we need to factor in that at least, you know, residents and taxpayers that talked to me when they learned that the village was spending their tax funds, you know, in this way that we're talking about, they were, you know, I would say offended, personally and deeply offended. And I'm not in the business of making decisions that offend, you know, and violate the principles of our residents. I don't think we should be doing that, especially for what is in essence non-essential activities where there are other alternatives. And I think we can fix the problem. And the comment about city policies is really irrelevant because this is a state issue. So I do support this as written.
Any further discussion? Councilwoman Tyler.
I don't have a problem with a travel policy. I think we need one, and we should have had one a long time ago. I understand women's rights, and I definitely understand civil rights. I choose not to travel to states that don't allow my family members to vote, and that's in 2023 and in 2024. But I don't seem that it's important to impose my personal constraints that have been put upon my family members, one in particular who is 86 years old, who was stopped, who went to the same polling place that they went to for 30 years and told to go back home and get a birth certificate. I just think some things we can handle and we can deal with. I think we should pass a travel policy, plain and simple. And I think we should go back and sit down and discuss what it is that we really want, because based on what I've heard, and that's why I kept going back and forth with it, is that, okay, we'll take this policy and we'll take what it states about what the state is doing, but we'll also put a waiver in that you don't have to do that, and now we're giving the mayor the work to approve the waivers. It seems like we're just saying it out there, and we're just saying that we will follow this policy and we will do what this says, but we also have the option of not doing what it says, and then the mayor can also approve a waiver for it. So it looks like we're creating more steps just to give the appearance that we are following or giving the option to follow something that we really are saying you don't have to follow if you don't want to. So I don't have a problem with a travel policy. I have a problem that we are all not really sure of what we are really trying to institute. And for that, I would say we do need to go back and sit at the table and discuss what it is, even though, as Councilmember Roy has stated, the policy it is strictly about travel. Nothing is ever strictly the one thing in politics, if any of us have learned that. We all can come back. We all try to represent our constituents in the best way possible that is best suited for the village. But everybody does not walk the same shoes that each of us do. And I think this is one that is very important to people on women's rights. And don't get me wrong, I am for women's rights, but I'm also for human rights and civil rights. And I don't think right now we as a council are ready to vote on a policy that is basically make it appear some way, and we're not.
Further discussion?
Yeah. So the waiver is not meant to negate the policy. The waiver is to just give in the event of a, like, for example, I thought I read somewhere the Montgomery County might waive their policy if they need to pick up prisoners. And clearly that would be a reason to not have to follow this policy. So there is a policy, the restriction is the restriction, but we do recognize that there may be extraordinary circumstances, and that's why we're approving the waiver, not to sort of say we're approving it, but we're not approving it. And I also want to just say personally, I think there's a real disingenuousness to say I'm not going to vote, but if I feel like voting, I'm going to vote. That's not a policy. You either have a policy, you're going to stay out of this discussion and be neutral and moderate the discussion and not vote, or you don't have a policy. But it seems like it's sort of trying to be too cute by half, to say I have a policy, but I really don't have. I'll vote when I feel like it. And that's very frustrating, because it appears that this vote might take a majority opinion that's yes and turn it into a no vote. And that's just not, that's not saying you don't have a policy.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. I don't know what we're voting on. We're voting on the motion as amended. The motion is to adopt the overnight travel policy with providing the mayor with the authority to waive in writing requests for specific trips if in her judgment or in the mayor's judgment trip would be necessary. That's correct. You're welcome. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. I see 3. All those opposed say aye. 3. The motion fails. Moving on to new business, a discussion vote on the resolution designating authorized signers on the village CD account. Councilman Schaefer, or actually probably Village Manager Mansfield. Thank you. Sorry.
This came out of the most recent Finance Committee meeting and a discussion about authorized individuals on the CD accounts that the village has. And the Finance Committee recommended installing the 3 council members, Councilmember Schaefer, Councilmember Pestronk, and Mayor White, as the signers, and not having the staff as the 3 signers. In order to do this, the CD account, the bank, and our financial representative is requiring a resolution, what he calls a corporate resolution, which we drafted and is in your packet. The 3 staff members have signed it, and then the 3 incoming council members on the account need to also sign it. And it was requested that this be sent to the whole council for approval. So you have a copy of it in your packet, and I have the original here. for signature once it's approved.
Is there discussion? Is there a motion to support signing the corporate resolution as proposed? Council, well, okay. Is there discussion? Julie and I had one suggested change in the corporate resolution, which is since it's the council that's adopting this, the corporate resolution might say in the first line, per the village council meeting dated today, rather than the finance committee. The reason for bringing it to the council is to have the council adopt it. So that's the reference that it seems to me that would be appropriate.
Okay, then we can't sign it this evening, but we'll make that change.
Yeah, okay. Any further discussion, Councilman Measy?
I understand and support the decision. I just like to confirm for the record that this is being done because we feel it's a better administrative approach, and there's not even the slightest implication that the staff members who have had this authority before have used it in an inappropriate or inefficient or way or something. It's not to be interpreted as a vote of no confidence in the staff members who've worked so diligently for us.
Thank you.
Totally agree with you. I know it's not an emotion, but I second it. I agree
You
with
second
you.
that emotion?
No, I second that, what he said.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. That takes us to the last item on the agenda, which is a discussion of the interior plant maintenance contract, and I think Councilman Schaefer, this is yours.
Okay. Excuse me. So this is, I discussed recently how we're sort of taking a fresh look at every contract that's up for renewal, and for reasons that I think are going to become obvious, this one deserves a public discussion. We have a 3-year contract now for plant watering and maintenance. It's just for the interior plants in this building. The contract expires the end of this month. We received a proposal from our current vendor to renew the contract for 3 more years at $550 per month. That's $6,600 per year, or $19,800 for the total contract. And the reason I thought we should discuss it is there's a few reasons. At $19,800, the contract is 99% of the $20,000 limit that requires, excuse me, an RFP. And since we didn't have one, I'm not sure we got other bids, so I thought we should discuss it. And as I said, it's consistent with the approach we've been taking, so I thought we should discuss the cost benefits, if we should bid it out, or see if we can get a volunteer to provide this service at no cost. And I think it's especially timely since we're in the middle of the budget process and likely looking at a deficit. And my feeling is that we can easily find a volunteer who would do this for out-of-pocket costs. We use volunteers now for other functions in the meeting house, so it's not a new idea. There's a garden club in Chevy Chase that might do this, and I think rather than committing to spend $20,000 to maintain some indoor plants, we should see if we can get it done for no cost, or out-of-pocket cost for a volunteer.
Is there any further discussion about this? There's really we're just discussing it now. There's no motion on the table. Let me see whether the village manager has comments that he'd like to make.
Well, I made some comments in the memo in the packet. I think this is a very useful contract. I think would be very difficult to try to replace with volunteers. There's a lot more to it than just simply watering. There's maintaining, there's replacing plants when they die, which no volunteer is going to do for us. And there's also providing seasonal flower rotations, which certainly costs some money and is a lot more than just watering. In addition, this contractor does seasonal holiday decorations for us, which are always very lovely, and the community really appreciates it for the major events and for the winter holidays. And that is outside of this maintenance contract, those costs, but they are lowered because of the existence of the contract, so we end up getting pretty good pricing when she does these special decorations for us. She's been doing this for a long time. We have bid this in the past before we revised the charter. She was always towards the low end of the bidders. She's made a habit of either not raising her price or fixing it for the 3 years, which she has done again in this proposal. She's raised it $50 a month, but that is fixed over a 3-year period. So she's really been very fair with us in terms of her charges. People like coming into the center and seeing fresh flowers and plants that are well maintained. I don't see a feasible, easy way to do that by just relying on volunteers.
Councilwoman Tyler?
I have one question. You said $550 a month, and what was it for 3 years?
$19,800.
For 3 years.
Which is 99% of the amount that would require an RFP.
Can I make a comment on that too?
Yes, sure. And then Councilwoman Salt after that.
Regardless of how close it is to the RFP, the whole point of raising the charter amendment, which took a tremendous effort and a whole lot of work, was to make these types of smaller expenses not subject to the RFP process for efficiency and ease of administration. So yes, this is very close to 20,000, but it is below 20,000, and that's the charter limit.
I'd like to have a couple of questions. When's the end date for our current arrangement? You may have mentioned that, but when is the end date?
March 1st, February 28th.
And would it be possible for us to go month to month after the end date of the contract, our present contract? Could we have a conversation with Interior Gardens Design and say whatever needs to be said, but we'd like to go month to month for some period of time?
I think that's already in the current contract, is that there's a 30-day opt-out clause.
But that would be through the end of the contract, and the contract ends.
No, I believe there's a
month to month.
30-day termination clause already there.
Okay.
As we do with most of our contracts, so we have an opt-out clause.
So let me.
Either side can terminate with 30 days notice. I mean, that's pretty standard.
Councilman Nisi and then Councilwoman Salt.
I think Martha's ahead.
Yeah, Martha.
When I came in today, I walked around the common areas. I counted 9 plants. I think if plants are in your personal, can you not hear me? When I came in, I counted the plants in the common areas. And I figure if a plant is in your personal office, you can water it. But I mean, I really think this is practically a perfect example of waste. You could throw out the plants every month and replace them for this amount. I think it's just something we shouldn't be doing. I agree with Roy about getting a volunteer.
Councilman Mizzi.
Julian, I thought I heard you say that you've gotten comparable costs at various times for this from other people, and it's been more,
Yep.
It's been less.
Yeah, she's generally been on the low end, and we have bid this previously before the charter was amended and the limit was $5,000. We definitely had to bid this every time, yes.
But
I
it
mean,
hasn't been bid for 3 years, right?
That's right.
Okay.
I too don't want to deal with volunteers on this sort of thing. I mean, that's, volunteers are terrific for a variety of things, but if you have to depend upon volunteers, that's not necessarily a good thing for what we should be doing. So I think that's out of the question. Question is whether we should proceed with this contract. And it seems to me that if we're on a 30-day mutual termination basis. I feel comfortable moving ahead with it at the recommendation of the village manager. And if we can, in the meantime, develop some reasonable alternatives beyond simply trying to round up somebody from the garden club to come in and do this, then we could explore that. But see, it's expiring in like 2 months here, 2 weeks, and so I think we have to go ahead, and I'll support going ahead.
But are you saying we would go ahead, but also look for a volunteer? Because if we don't, there's no.
So let me, excuse me, before you go back and forth with one, let me propose something that may address both of what you are after and what the village manager is after as well. If it turns out that we can go month to month indefinitely, then what I'd like to propose is that we notify Interior Garden Designs that we're going to go month to month for a period of time. And during the next month or so, we determine whether it's possible to get a volunteer to do it, and we develop a request proposal despite the fact that it's 19.8 and the authority is 20,000, because part of what Councilman Schaefer has discussed with us is what I think is a reasonable policy, which is periodically, we don't have a policy yet, but periodically to reissue RFPs for items that are recurring expenditures in the budget. So what that would allow us to do is to continue what we're presently doing, to explore, because it's just an opinion right now that some of us may have, whether there's a volunteer or as a group that would be willing to assume that responsibility, and to develop an RFP that would allow us to confirm that this particular amount is what it would take to what we want to have done. So that's what I would propose. And
Are you proposing this as a motion?
no, right now, I'm just like to have discussion. If there's consensus about it, that's direction that we can provide to the village manager tonight. If someone wants to make a motion in that respect, that's fine too.
Well, then I would make a motion to prepare an RFP and also solicit volunteers.
That's what I would.
Right, but that's why I asked you if you were making a motion
Yeah,
or not.
okay. I move then to go month to month on the current contract and notify Interior Garden Designs that we are, to determine whether there are volunteers who are available who can perform all of these tasks. In addition, all of the tasks that would be listed are listed now. And third, to develop an RFP to explore whether this is now a competitive proposal.
Right, and I would also add that the volunteers would be reimbursed for out-of-pocket costs.
Okay. So that's a motion. Are you supporting that motion?
Yes.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Yes, Councilwoman Tyler.
Are we going to state what the out-of-pocket reimbursement is? Because if not, that could come back to haunt us. That people get in a car to travel, to go pick up flowers, all the things that they need. I think we need, if that's what you're going to do, then I think you need to state what you're going to reimburse.
If this is a volunteer and they submit a bill that's outrageous, we just drop them as a volunteer.
But that's a relative statement is outrageous, because I've done plants.
If it's less than what we're paying anyway, we're still saving money.
Plants are expensive.
Okay.
And I've done plants.
Go ahead. Mayor White.
Julian, is Pam currently responsible for bringing in the seasonal decorations that we see here?
Mm-hmm.
And where are they stored after the holidays end? She takes them with her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she provides everything, she maintains it, she
Just on a
replaces
very
it, there's a
practical-
warranty if it dies.
On a very practical level, you're working with volunteers. Are they going to take all this stuff into their home and save it until
No,
next year?
I mean-
I think this center is important enough that we need a professional company working here. I'm opposed to volunteers.
You know, I think this motion that's on the table doesn't say we will use volunteers.
It says we'll
Because
entertain the
we're-
idea.
We're going to explore whether it's possible to employ volunteers to do all this.
I understand what you're trying to accomplish here, Bobby, in terms of finding sort of a middle ground, what I usually try to do as well. But it seems to me that you know, as Melanie has said, you know, we have somebody we've been working with. They do a lot for us. They you know, I just having to deal with volunteers creates a whole new set of workload for our management, because volunteers need to be supervised, volunteers need to be trained. You have to constantly deal with them. As Melanie indicates, things come up, different things happen. You're working with volunteers. Well, that was not my understanding of what we're supposed to do. They will respond, and you'll be going back and forth. And as Cheryl says, you know, well, I paid for this. What, you spent that much on the plant? You should have spent less on that plant. And I see a whole panoply of issues coming up. So I don't want to even think about doing volunteering on this sort of thing. If we can get this done cheaper, I'm in favor of looking maybe an RFP, find somebody else who can do it at a less expensive price. But I really don't think we want to go down the road of volunteers on this.
Councilman Measy, would you like to make a motion to amend the motion?
Well, why don't
Which
you
is to
repeat the
eliminate,
motion?
well, the motion now presently has 4 elements. It's to notify Interior Garden Designs that we wish to go month to month. It's to direct the village manager to determine whether volunteers are available to perform all the tasks that are listed here. Third, it is to construct an RFP, which lists the tasks that we'd like to have performed, and put that out on the typical state website where we do it, in order to see whether there are other vendors interested in providing the service. And as presently constructed, the motion would be, I think, that volunteers would be reimbursed for out-of-pocket costs.
So I propose that we amend your motion to delete the second and fourth parts, that is the 2 parts dealing with volunteers. And I would support going on the month-to-month basis and developing an RFP to see if it can be done less expensively.
Okay.
So my motion is,
Your
my
motion
is to delete this.
It's to amend the motion on the
To
floor.
delete parts
those 2
2 and 4.
Right. Is there support for that?
I'll support
Okay.
that one. And I'd like to say something too, to add to what Councilman Measy just said. It may sound easy to say we get volunteers, but now you've created another job for our staff to oversee volunteers. I am totally against that. And I agree with Mayor Melanie, Mayor White. We have to look professional. And I'm not saying some of the volunteers aren't, but we need to stick with a business that does this and knows this.
Further discussion on the motion, on the amendment to the motion, not the motion, but the amendment to the motion. Okay, so the amendment to the motion is to eliminate the search for volunteers and the reimbursement for out-of-pocket costs to volunteers. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor of eliminating those 2 elements from the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. We're now back to the motion which has us going month to month and developing an RFP consistent with our needs, and issuing that RFP to the Maryland website. Unless, I would say, somebody wants to see that RFP before it goes out. Is anybody interested in seeing that RFP before it goes out?
No.
Okay, so it's to go month to month and to develop an RFP reflective of our needs and put it out on the website and bring.
Actually, can I change my mind on that?
Yeah.
I think we do need to see it.
You'd like to see it?
Because if it just mimics this contract, the contract is very vague.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't say how many plans, no, you know, it's just as, you know, it's very vague.
Okay, so you would like the RFP brought back to the council for council review? I'm happy to amend my motion, and the supporter of the motion, I think, was Councilman Schaefer? Okay. So is there any confusion about this motion?
I'll see in the videotape, right?
Yeah, right. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That's the last item on our agenda. I'd like to thank you all very much for attending, either in person or online, and thank council members for a lively discussion and staff for preparing the materials needed for discussion.